Welcome to Unmasking Social, where we talk about building real friendships and meaningful connections without masking who we truly are. I'm your host, Sharon Baum, a speech and language pathologist with an expertise in social thinking and how it relates to autism and ADHD, specifically with our teens and tweens. Let's dive in. Hello. On today's episode, we have the wonderful Dr. Robert Naseef, who actually went through a long journey as a father to someone with high support needs autism. Life did not end up the way he predicted it. He didn't end up with the child that he thought he would, but he ended up with a child that he learned from, that he loves more than he could have ever thought he could have loved his child, all by advocating and thinking with the thought leaders on how to support his child in the way that can best suit him. But beyond that, Dr. Robert Naseef really takes us through a journey on his advocacy and what that means for autistic individuals across the world. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unmasking Social. Today we have the esteemed Dr. Robert Naseef, who has done so much groundbreaking work in the autism as well as just overall neurodivergent population. He has done a lot of work with the Drexel Institute, which Dr. Naseef, you could speak more to. Internationally has done amazing work. But Dr. Naseef, I usually start in the beginning, but I'm going to jump a little forward, if that's okay, because there's something that really touched me. You were giving a TEDx talk at Arcadia University, and you had said something that really spoke to me, but really could speak to anybody, whether neurodivergent or not, on how sometimes we have I'm not going to quote it correctly, our life planned out in a certain way. We have a vision of what our children's life is going to look like, what our family life is going to look like. And we all expect everything to turn out based on that script that we have carved out. I'm paraphrasing what you said. And then life has a way of taking turns. And for you, it took a very interesting turn. And you had a son born to this day Tariq, who is a big part of your life. When you gave that speech, he was 37 years old. Now he is
45 going on 46.
Okay. All right. So he is a millennial in the millennial group still, like myself. Okay. And that really touched me. And as a clinical psychologist with all these years of experience and all the work that you've done since then, you have this son that's born and you're a father. And I think fathers are not given enough credit for their role in all of this. And also as someone who's worked in a collaborative program for individuals with autism and social communication challenges, we a lot of times go to the mothers and leave the fathers out of the conversation, sometimes subconsciously. Can you tell us a little bit about what that really meant for you when you say life kind of delivered this to you and now you're in a space where you're a father and now you have to figure out how to navigate a different kind of family dynamic? What was that like for you, being that you had such a good background in psychology, but now it's your own family?
No, well, actually, I wasn't a psychologist at the time. That comes later. I was a teacher. I was a reading specialist. I was teaching inner city kids who had dropped out of high school, preparing them to get their GED. So, yeah, and then life happened, right? Life just happened. And so my son's born, and he seems perfect at first, and he's meeting all the developmental milestones, and he starts to speak, but then around 18 months, he stops talking.
Right.
And for a long time, I thought, he'll start talking again, right?
Yeah.
That's what the pediatrician thought, but that wasn't to be. As the months and years evolved, he became very frustrated. He was pacing back and forth, flapping, all of the classic kind of symptoms that autistic boys have. Not all the girls have all these symptoms, as we know. But the boys have. He had it. And no preschool would take him. A home program was devised for him. He couldn't go to kindergarten. He was in early intervention, which in those days started at age 5.
Oh.
I mean, now early intervention starts at 3, or preschool starts at 3. Early intervention starts at birth. But in the 80s, it started at 5. So at 5, he's in an early intervention program, still not talking. And it was at that point, when he was ready to leave that program, that he was, after 2 evaluations, diagnosed with autism. And it was like, okay, I gave you the scenario, but I don't think I could live through those days again or something like that. Like, he was the son I dreamed of. I wanted him to be a better version of me. I wanted to be patient with him. Wanted to be more patient than my father was with me. All these things. I wanted him to play baseball. I wanted him to build model planes and cars and trains and do things I did as a boy. And none of that was happening. I was devastated. And, that was what I was talking about on the TEDx, like briefly, how my life blew up. And now I had to learn to accept what seemed so unacceptable. I wanted to fix him. I wanted to fix him so bad. And you asked about fathers, and this is where the father thing comes in, the male thing comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can't talk about, in general, men have trouble talking about problems we can't fix. And look, to this day, I've learned to talk about it. I've talked about it all around the country and parts of the world, but I still haven't met a problem I didn't want to fix. My wife and my daughters tell me all the time, like, don't try to fix this, just listen.
Video with men in general.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a general thing. It's a human conundrum. It comes from the way we're socialized. Now, I learned as a psychologist years later that male infants are actually more emotionally expressive than female infants. But boys, they're taught by leaving them generally to cry, while girls are comforted. They are taught to hold in their feelings.
So it's more common to let a boy cry like an infant boy. It's more common for parents to just say, let them cry it out, so to say, as an infant girl, the urge is usually, or the desire is to comfort that little infant girl more, right?
Yeah, on the average. You could Google this and the studies just pop up like crazy. And now you can use AI and
ChatGPT and all that. Yeah, our best friend right now.
But it's not intuitively obvious when you see the society we live in. Now, it's changed somewhat, and boys and men are more open in general than we used to, but it's still, this is a social phenomenon. And how we treat children that are different is social. And I don't know where we're going with this exactly, but you asked about fathers.
Mhm.
So my son's in past early intervention. He's in a special school clinic for autistic kids. I'm the only man going to the support group, and the staff was asking me to help talk to other parents and fathers. And I'm like, what? And I wasn't a psychologist at the time, but that's how I got started. And that's what I would actually recommend to people listening to this. If you're working in a program and you want men to speak up, you need to invite them and tell them you need their voices. And they will. Someone will take that up. And so a lot of my professional work now really centers on the psychology of men and boys. And for the past 5 years, my colleague Michael Hannon and I have co-facilitated a father's support group at the Drexel Autism Institute. This year, we've moved over to Montclair University, but the group's continuing in its 6th year. We've touched over 450 lives. We get about 30 men every month on a Zoom call. And we've written on what's happening. We're looking for research grants to further understand what helps men to engage with each other, with their children with autism, and so on. This has become my passion. And in all these years, my son's never spoken. But I've learned to love him as much as life. Well, I always loved him as much as life itself, but I wanted to change him so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, and I realized he was 8, 9 years old at the time, I tried so hard to change him that loving him changed me.
Wow.
I became a different kind of father, a different kind of man, a different kind of partner, brother, friend. Being his son's been transformational. And that's what the TED Talk was about.
Yeah. That really spoke to me so much, just in general, how life can go in all these different directions that we don't expect. And then how are we going to cope with it? And then just the family dynamic when there is a man and a woman involved who are taking care of a child. And then oftentimes just inadvertently, even to this day, inadvertently leave the father out of conversations because men are a little bit, like you said, shy and more reserved to speak about how they're feeling. And they might be involved on the sidelines, like you said, trying to fix things or maybe advocating in different ways. But very often it's the mothers that are at the forefront. And I feel like fathers like you are just so inspirational to men in general to speak to how they're feeling and also how to work with your partner and work with your family so that even when life throws you this curveball, how are you going to get through it?
Exactly. I mean, so child rearing, the job of child rearing has been socialized as women's work, and men's work is provide and protect. And we have to really reimagine these things. My colleague Mike O'Hannon talks about providing, protecting, and preparing our children for the world. That's so important. And so because women are sort of predisposed and programmed to do the heavy lifting of child rearing, providers of all sorts find it easier to talk to women than to talk to men. And I'm no exception.
Yeah.
I'm no exception to that, but I push myself I do a lot of autism evaluations now, primarily though adolescents and adults, but I don't do children anymore because I can't get down at their level at my age. But
Yeah.
the mother usually initiates the call, and I say, well, I want to talk to both parents. It would be easier just to stay with her. Well, I don't know when my husband's usually, she says. And I say, well, let's find out because I want to start with both of you. And I think we need to make a consistent effort and intention as therapists of all kinds and medical professionals of all kinds to engage fathers. Because when we ask, more often than not, we'll step up a little bit. Maybe not as much as we would like, but they will step up a little bit.
Yeah. And I've seen fathers step up.
We have to change the culture around this.
Yeah. It's just so fascinating also to me in general because when you are a mother, a lot of times you are working simultaneously. So both partners are doing the heavy lifting in terms of working, right? But yet we still have a society that puts that, like you said, that child rearing on the mother, even though both parties are still working and are still doing all of the other parts of life. But the children, yet we still, our natural instinct is to go to the mother. And you're right. I think this is something that we have to just systemically change just across the board. And I feel like you're somebody who is making big changes because people are hearing from you and you've really been so vulnerable about your emotions. Like you said, you were trying to fix things for a while because that's what men do. I mean, not all men, of course, I'm not trying to stereotype, but men are fixers and women, we just want to hear that everything's going to be okay. Just listen and just say, you're good, we're good, just validate us. But then you mentioned acceptance, which I'm not a psychologist, I'm a speech language pathologist, but acceptance is something that psychologists speak about a lot. And that's really the moment where you can move forward in a lot of healthy ways. And so your journey with Tariq started where your life, it sounded like, was really rattled. And it sounds like it really naturally just took a turn in a way where you were trying to fix him and you wanted him to be the child that you always dreamed of. You had a dream and you wanted that dream fulfilled, which is totally normal. And then throughout this journey, you see that he is developing in a way that is not in the way that you had wanted him to. But then you reached some sort of acceptance. How did that happen where you went from fixing to acceptance for all those who are listening and are struggling with this? Because many parents really have trouble with the acceptance piece naturally.
Well, look, boy, it's a great question. And there's a lot to this. And
Feel
I
free to
write
share
about
everything.
it. And I'm still writing about it. So there's the acceptance in the beginning. Let me talk about that. And then it's a moving target. It just goes on, just like life itself.
Yeah.
And while all this was going on, and what's maybe a little different about me is I was his primary caretaker. My marriage with his mom didn't work out. And so that was a part of the picture. But I was very engaged all along. So one of the things I was learning from his therapist, and including his speech and language therapist, and I couldn't understand what the hell they were doing. They're playing with him. I'm like, aren't you supposed to teach him to talk? And they keep playing with him. And they're showing me what he could do. And I'm like, but why isn't he talking?
Mhm.
Well, we're just joining him where he is. It took me a long time to understand the wisdom of that. And also to understand that some kids develop speech slowly and some stop and are very limited and don't pick up speech, but that every child has ways of communicating and that his behavior communicates. So those were the things I was learning. And really interestingly, and I'm sure, I imagine you're aware of the work of Barry Prezant, Uniquely Human.
Human, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So when my son was young, I was reading his early papers on behavior
Oh, okay.
and Gestalt language theory
Mm-hmm.
that communicate by behaviors, and children with limited language are communicating by behaviors. I was reading that. My son was like 5 years old when I was first exposed to that. The communicative intent of behavior, that's what he called it. And I mean, my life's come full circle. Barry's a personal friend of mine now. We talk and work together on things, but it's been a long time. I mean, with his speech therapist, I think in retrospect, I was kind of a knucklehead. Well, you're not doing anything. You're not really doing anything.
It looks like you're just playing, you're just sharing toys. It looks like just like a little play session, right? From the outside.
Yeah. And you're telling me, oh, he hung up his coat today. It's the first time he did that. Really? Like he's 5 years old. Come on.
Right. Like,
So,
let's get the show on the road, guys. You're not doing enough. Yeah, I get it.
but the real shift that came from his child psychiatrist and others, and people like T. Barry Brazelton, the famous pediatrician, the real switch was think about what he can do.
Mm.
Think about what you enjoy about him. And that was the real mind shift. And what I've learned since is as you do that and you alter your expectations, and we do this in our practice when we diagnose young children, is we point out to parents, this is the same kid you fell in love with on day one. This is who they are at 3, 4, 5. And if you can sort of put the brakes on your expectations, join them where they are, and start loving them as they are, not as you want them to be, that's the fertile ground for acceptance.
Wow. I feel like that's such a great message, though, for everybody. And I'm not a parent right now, and hopefully I will be soon. I mean, there's no like breaking announcement here, but I'm just hopefully it will come in the near future. I'm not breaking any news on the podcast here. No, but basically, but one thing that I have observed in other parents is just how very often parents have ideas, just in working with parents for so many years in the schools and privately, they have ideas and expectations of what they want their child to be. And like you said, it can be an extended version of themselves or a better version of themselves. And if the child isn't as good at sports as they are, or doesn't have the same exact interests as them, just in general, whether they're neurodivergent or not, I just find that a lot of times parents are a little bit disappointed or a lot disappointed in some occasions because the child just doesn't turn out to be the child that they envisioned, which was really an extension of themselves. So I just feel like your words are so powerful to anybody listening, any parent listening, which is that you want to love the child, like you said, as they are, not as you dream them to be or as you expected them, but love them for who they are. And you touched upon something, if you don't mind expanding on, which is that these individuals that we're speaking to now, you came full circle. You're close friends with Barry Prezant, which means that you know a lot on this topic, a lot more than me at this point. But the deficit model, I think, became very much prevalent in our society, which is we were looking at people based on what they can't do and then trying to fix what they can't do, right? And then there's the strength and interest-based model that I was always taught because I was taught by people in the community that think like Barry Prezant, and really working with this population, no matter what level of autism one has or whatever type of neurodivergence one has, ADHD, whatever it may be, but making sure that you are focusing on their strengths and interests and elevating it and teaching them to advocate for that. So I'm so curious, Dr. Robert Naseef, if you can speak a little bit about how you use that strengths-based model as you shifted towards acceptance with your Tariq.
I mean, these feelings are never far, but sometimes it's hard to think and break it down into little pieces. But I came to notice and enjoy what I could do with him. I could take long walks. I could put him in the child seat on the back of my bike and take a ride, and he would enjoy it. And like, he's in constant motion. He still is.
Okay.
But that motion could be taking a walk in the park. It could be riding on the back of my bike. It could be taking a ride in the car, and he's looking out the window. And it wasn't what I really wanted to be. I really wanted to be doing other kinds of things, but I learned to enjoy those things that he enjoyed. And that's like sort of the multiple vitamin for the relationship. Because if you can't enjoy your child, and this is really the rub with children with really significant support needs and the language we would use now, right? So because their behaviors are challenging, they're not easy to be with, to hang out with. So the rub is for family members, caretakers, siblings. When we love somebody, we generally want to be with them. But what about when our loved ones are hard to be with? What do you do? And that is really excruciating. And I work with this with parents. Like, if it's too hard to be with your child at a family gathering because they get bored, they're running all around, how about limiting your time there so that everybody can enjoy it? Or maybe you take turns, mom and dad being with the family, the other one taking care of the kid. You're like a tag team. You can still find ways to enjoy social events. You may have to, by changing expectations, limiting your time there, having someone sort of on duty all the time, not things you wanted originally, but you can make it work. And sometimes you can't make it work.
Right.
And then you have to find the peace and the serenity to accept that we're powerless. Like, my son could not be safe at home. He couldn't be. He got out of everywhere. He climbed out the bathroom window at school during an IEP meeting. So, by age 9, to protect his life, he needed a residential setting. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. I mean, my wife and I used to sleep on the floor outside the door of his room so he wouldn't get out at night because he got out the fire escape. He got out the fire escape of the building we were living in.
Wow. What a smart, clever young man. I mean, despite all the hardships, he would figure out a way, meaning he figured out even just to go through the fire escape.
Which you can't lock.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, it's just like so fascinating. It's like a juxtaposition of emotions that I'm feeling right now. Because on the one hand, I'm feeling so much empathy for what you went through, and also just so inspired that as parents, you were literally sleeping on the floor, like next to his room, just so he could be safe. And then realizing, obviously, that wasn't an answer. But also at the same time, also thinking about how we also sometimes don't realize how smart these individuals are just because they're non-speaking or just because they're communicating through behaviors. The fact that he even was able to figure out, hey, you know what, you're not letting me out. Well, there's a fire escape here. I mean, that shows some level for me. I don't know. It just shows some level of ability to just think outside the box, like which isn't the box that you want him to think out of.
Absolutely.
There's no lock on that. And I think that it really touched me when you said that. Right. You can't lock that box. But I'm just saying that I think that people who are non-speaking, I think people still just don't understand that they have such a wild mind.
And, well, I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Yeah, we don't want that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I know him. He was in the playground 2 blocks away on the swing happily at 1:30 in the morning.
Wow. So he found his way to his passion at night.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do.
That's where he was. See, which showed your point. That illustrates your point. So he needed round-the-clock care. So that involved going through due process. And he grew up in the residential setting of the Devereaux Foundation outside Philadelphia, where he was safe and well cared for. He even got out of there a few times with round-the-clock staffing. He's found a way out. Turned up a mile away, even out of a residential setting, turned up an hour away at the convenience store getting potato chips. One day, he turned up in somebody's bathroom running the shower.
Wow. That must have been so frightening for you. And these are real stories. And these things happen more often than people think.
They happen a lot. Now, that was in the late 80s. Now, today we have technology that helps. We have cameras and we have trackers and things you could put on your kid with location finders. Technology can really help, but this stuff still happens. So with the technology, people find their kid a couple blocks away more quickly and with a little less fear, but it's still frightening. It's still frightening. And you could put locks on the door.
Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, I know sometimes there's no way
There's
around
a
it.
lot more safety equipment available, but it's hard to live this way.
Right, right.
It's really hard to live this way. So to bring this right into the present milieu we're living in, a lot of the in-home services that families of kids with autism and other disabilities get are funded by Medicaid. With these huge Medicaid cuts, it's going to impact them. It looks like the cuts will first take the form of less payment to providers. So therapists will make less and people won't stay in those jobs as long. I mean, it's really insidious. And the cuts won't start till after the midterm elections.
Okay.
But my son's round-the-clock residential program is fully funded by Medicaid. So we don't know, what form that's going to take, what those cuts will take. Will individuals in residential care be put back into things more like the old state institutions? I mean, this big, beautiful bill and Project 2025 have horrific goals for kids and adults with disabilities.
Yeah.
So we really have to join together and be in community and push back against these things. It's not about, and people say, I don't want to be political. Well, my argument is this isn't political. This isn't right, left, or center. This isn't Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. This is about human rights, human dignity.
I do agree that this is an apolitical issue. It sounds like you're in limbo all over again, essentially, because you had found a safe place for Tariq in this residential program that is funded by Medicaid. And now things are kind of flipped on its head, which is where do you go next? Because you don't know what's going to happen next. And this was supposed to be Tariq's final destination, to be in this safe place. So it sounds like now you're in limbo again in terms of what's going to happen. And I feel like the way you're expressing it, it sounds like a lot of stress on families in general that are dealing with this. So I feel like it's now creating almost like another layer of the unknown. And originally you had come to accept everything. You had found a safe place. You tried everything. And now it seems like almost yet again, you're finding yourself in a state of confusion.
Somewhat. And I mean, I have to just accept where it's at and do my best and be in community with others as we push back against these inhumane policies. But I mean, speaking not just for myself, there's so many thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of families of kids with autism and other needs that get Medicaid services.
Yeah.
And families all over are worried about this. Cutbacks in the Department of Education will affect special education. They're going into effect. The whole Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education at the door. And the Civil Rights Division monitors that states are uniformly and fairly applying the law in special education. So special education's being torn up with like the chainsaw that Elon Musk walked around. So wherever people are in the political spectrum, we need to be together to protect our children, our families. And I think as a united community, we have power.
Yeah.
We need to stay together on this. The therapists, families, children, parents, like everybody, we're all impacted.
Yeah. And it sounds like your advocacy for so long was on so many other things. And now it's almost sounds like you have to shift now your advocacy while you're still focusing on advocating for the fathers and advocating for the strengths and advocating for children who are not speaking and the whole, everything that you've been doing. But now you have to now advocate for this and encourage others to advocate for keeping Medicaid in place as it is. So now we're heading into another layer of advocacy, it sounds like, for
Well,
everybody.
absolutely. That's a good way to put it. And this is, look, I was very discouraged having to enter this period. I was really discouraged. What I learned, how I see it, is that people that came before us in civil rights and disability rights, we stand on their shoulders. That's why the services we have, in some sense, the privileges we've had, we take for normal. And now we have to be the people for others to stand on our shoulders. That's my message. And in getting clear what's my message, I can go forward. I'm speaking at conferences on this topic of resilience and resistance in the face of really difficult times, being together as a community and protecting our loved ones and providing a safe life future for them. That's what I'm working for now, for my son, everybody.
Yeah. And like what you were saying is unity is key because we're all on the same page. For all of us who are passionate about working with this population, whether we're caregivers, whether we're family members, whether we're professionals, we want to remain united in the sense that we want to make sure that the best is happening for these individuals now, just like we did before. But I just want to circle back. I know we only have a few minutes left, but you published so many books. You've been so inspirational on so many levels. And one book you spoke about in terms of coping and coping together. I believe it was in 2012 that you wrote the book. And as just as a family and the family dynamic that you created. And you said something, and I believe you presented it in the book, that one of the coping strategies that you used was really loving your son for who he was, but also starting to enjoy the things that he enjoyed. And so whether it was the walks or taking him on the bike. And so there were things that you didn't generally love, but you learned to love through him, right? I think that's so powerful because this podcast is actually also really very focused on the teens and tween years, which I'm sure were really hard for you as they are for everybody, because that's when teens and tweens really get to express themselves in ways that many of us, I worked in middle school really for my whole career. So that's the time when we get to see them in action and they're really trying to communicate what they're feeling, right? So circling back to that learning, how can professionals and family members do what you did with the teens and tweens? Because a lot of these teens and tweens find themselves lost and confused and wondering where they fit in. People aren't sharing their interests. So would you say that by knowing their interests, we should go indulge in those interests and learn about them as much as possible?
Yes, I think we have to go where they are. I mean, I encourage parents to play video games with their teens and tweens, watch them play video games, ask them what they enjoy about it, find ways to join together, find the things you can do together. There are things. And I like the work of Ross Greene and this concept of collaborative problem solving. What can we do together? How can we solve this together? So this is a really long discussion. I wish I had some magic dust.
No, I know. And we could always have a part two. I mean, I'd love to have you back because there's so much to really dig deep on, including your work with Dr. Shore. And Dr. Shore presented on that when he was on the podcast, just the way you've just changed the whole interviewing process, finding employment for those who are misunderstood and really taking this global. So I do really appreciate having you on. And there is no magic dust, like you said. But I think a real big takeaway for me personally is that we were always taught how we should really learn about individual strengths and interests and try to engage individuals through that. But I think something that isn't always intuitive is that we should also try to love the things that they love. And that's kind of really different and powerful. And that's why I'm reiterating it for everybody listening, because it's not very often that I can see a parent sitting and playing a video game with their child. It's usually just time that they carve out and know that they like video games, so we could talk about video games. But what about playing the video game with your child and competing with them? So I think in this moment, in this podcast, broaden that topic. It's not just about strengths and interests and showing that you appreciate their strengths and interests. It's learning to love it so that you're participating actively in their strengths and interests.
Even the kid who's watching YouTubes of other people playing video games, I'd say watch those YouTubes with your son or daughter.
That's
See what they're
incredible.
enjoying about it. Because that's not even playing the game. They're watching other people play the game. That's really hot right now in that age range.
That is what they love to do. Many of them. It's either that or Legos. Legos is also something that's like they love to do, which is, I think, fascinating. I have a nephew in 8th grade who he's worried that people are going to start laughing at him, right? But I say, no, that's your interest, that you love doing that. And that's where he can focus the most. He could spend 10 hours building a whole entire city or
Yeah,
town.
I met somebody yesterday who was into Legos. He became an engineer
Yep.
and he's now working, he's now volunteering Engineers Without Borders, helping develop the water supply in countries that have water shortages.
That's so amazing. Wow.
I mean, he
That's
started
incredible.
out playing Legos.
Wow. Yeah. And I really believe that so many of them end up in those amazing fields.
There's a world of possibility out here, Sharon.
There really is. And thank you so much, Dr. Naseef, because I feel like you've showed us how much possibility that there is. You said that you have the son, and I know the term that's used today that's politically correct, because I always am worried I'm going to use the wrong word because words are always changing, but a child that is non-speaking, a child that is communicating through behaviors a lot, that is having autism that is, you called it more significant.
High support needs.
High support needs. And so, but you're still able to see the beauty in it. You're still able to see the love in it. You're still able to kind of, I don't know, just to me and everybody listening, I mean, I just feel like we could all learn a lot from that about just learning to love people, even when things are hard, and making those accommodations. Like you said, it's okay if like they can't stay for the whole time. It's okay if they can't go certain places. Sometimes you just can't bring the person somewhere. And other times, like you said, you can make those accommodations. But that's, again, a topic that will hopefully, if you come on again, we can talk about more about inclusion and all the work you did with that. But thank you so much for being on today. And there's so much inspiration in everything that you said. I mean, I got chills so many times. So thank you for like letting me go into the weekend, just me personally, on such a high inspirational note. Like, you don't even realize how many lives you've touched, but you're touching
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share these ideas.
Yeah.
And what words could say. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And also, I know that people can find you on your website, drrobertnaseef.com, right? Is there anything else, any other projects that people should know about? I know that you said you're working on the advocacy for Medicaid and making sure that we're together, but is there anything else that people should know about?
No, that sums it up for.
Okay, that's enough.
I'm pretty available. If you Google me, like what I'm doing pops up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naseef.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon.